us hunger, death, consumed. Greetings and welcome to the Tournament of the Living Dead. I am Flesh Wound Dan, joined by producer Todd.
Good evening.
Pugs Dread.
Namaste.
And our special guest of the Spooky Picture Show podcast, Chris Macgibbon.
Hello.
How's it going? Good to have you back, Chris, our resident zombie expert.
Yeah.
You're good. It's a big title, Chris. That's like being a doctor or some shit. Come on.
With this crowd, it's sort of like being a low-key veterinarian who knows things.
There you go. Helping the pooches. That's a good thing. But yes, our Tournament of the Living Dead is upon us. It's gonna be an interesting one because I think even just this first episode might be a little bit heated. But before we get into all of that, Pugs, let them know how the Tournament of the Living Dead works.
What we do for our tournament is rate and review a film. But since tonight is the first night of our yearly tradition, we will be reviewing 4 films. And then at the end of the episode, we will eliminate one of those movies off the list, leaving us with our 3 zombie films, aka our 3 survivors. Then those 3 final survivors will go up against a new zombie film every episode until we reach day 13. And when we get to that point, we will pick one of those survivors as our Tournament of the Living Dead champion. So, Todd, now that that's out of the way, why don't you tell us what the hell's on the menu?
Thanks, Pugs. Well, our 4 films tonight are Lucio Fulci Zombie, Premuto's Fallen Angel, Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, and the favorite Return of the Living Dead. So, Dan, why don't you tell us about our first film in the tournament, Lucio Fulci Zombie.
Right. So, from 1979 and director Lucio Fulci, Zombie or Zombie 2. In Italy, it was considered the unofficial sequel to Dawn of the Dead. In England, it was known as Zombie Flesh Eaters and banned as obscene. In America, it was called Zombie and advertised with the depraved tagline, "We are going to eat you." Directed by the maestro of gore, Lucio Fulci, this remains the most eye-skewering, skin-ripping, gore-gushingly graphic horror hit of all time. All right, so...
I do want to say right off the top, the only rule we did in this tournament, we're normally a little stricter, is just no Ramiro. So there's some higher profile titles in this tournament than I'd say in some of our other ones. So that should make things interesting. So I'm really, yeah.
Yes. And you never know with these tournaments, too. Just because it's a classic doesn't mean it's going to win necessarily. All depends on the draw.
Looking at Dr. Giggles.
Woo! Yeah.
So I don't think there's any first-time viewers of this movie, but so Chris, tell us your history with Lucio Fulci's Zombie, because I know we all have
time.
My history, though, I mean, I saw it back in the day on VHS. It scared the shit out of me. I wasn't used to seeing zombies portrayed like that. I also had no clue what a dubbed movie was at that point in my life. I think I was 6 years old when I saw this for the first time. And, so something about that made it seem odd in some weird way. And I remember very distinctly having a nightmare. I was lying in my parents' bedroom because I went to sleep in their room that night because the movie scared me. And I looked in the doorway and I saw the fat zombie standing in the doorway, and I had a meltdown. And I think that that was a cue for my parents to get rid of this tape, and they did. And then, eventually I saw it again and just fell in love with it. And it wasn't much long after, because if something scared me when I was a kid, it was always a challenge to go back to it and then see if it still scared me or not. And this one didn't. At that point, I just kind of fell in love with it, and it was really my first exposure to Italian horror. Yeah. And then it was one of the first DVDs I ever bought. I think it was like my second DVD that I bought at the time. It was that cruddy Anchor Bay DVD that they put out.
That first one, the VHS was just as good.
Yeah. The non-anamorphic DVD that, was from the Laserdisc transfer or something like that. I can't remember, but It was also this was also one of the first films that exposed me to widescreen. I didn't know what widescreen was until I saw this movie, and I actually hated widescreen for a long time because I was one of those people who's like, you're missing the picture. And then somebody pointed it out to me that, like, you know, if you look at the full frame version of this film, there were some zombies off in a bush somewhere that you couldn't see. And I was like, they were like, look over there. Now look, when you watch the full frame version, they won't be in the frame. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. You can see more in widescreen. The widescreen's amazing. So this movie really did help introduce me to a lot of new things. So it's been a favorite. I've had it on every format: DVD, Blu-ray, 4K, most recently. So
VHS, don't leave it out.
Yeah, VHS. Yeah, well, I didn't leave it out. It was the first one I clued you all in on. So, but
isn't it wild to think that Fulci didn't realize that he had fans and he made something like this? I mean, fans abroad, I should say. Like at 96 convention right before he passed, it clicked. Like, holy crap! I am remembered in Iowa. You know, and my reach goes much further than I initially thought. I think, yeah.
It's not that surprising to me, honestly. I mean, I feel like that he probably knew he was successful in his own right. I'm sure he cast paychecks and whatnot, but nobody ever saw the amount of money they should have behind the camera or behind the scenes who made these movies. I mean, I think the person who wrote it, they interviewed him back in like 2001 on the Shriek Show DVD, and he was living in a hut somewhere. You know, and like this is the guy who wrote one of the most prolific zombie films ever made, and he's living in like, you know, a squalid hut out in Italy. You know, it looked like the walls were coming down around him or something. So,
and it wasn't by choice, right?
I don't know. That I'm not sure of, but it was just, I remember that distinctly back then, and I think that, and that's true of American horror as well. I you know, there's been people I've met that told me that they had no idea something was successful because they never saw the money. It was something that kind of came and went in their career as far as they were concerned, and then it was a blip on the radar, and then it was gone. They didn't realize that it was super successful on VHS and rented over 1 million copies or was playing on cable all the time. They just got their check and, you know, never got another job because of it, or got other jobs and moved on, and that was it. So
you're saying shady film distributors weren't giving Lucio Fulci his money?
Well, according to a lot of folks, that this film wasn't even necessarily officially released in the U.S. The company that owns the movie has gone on record saying that they've never heard of the Cherry Gross organization, who's the company that first put this movie out in the States. And
which is wild. If you were in New York, posters were everywhere.
They were, and that dude went around New York City collecting money from people to like invest into the project. I actually met somebody whose mother did it, and they never saw a dime from anything, you know. So it was
awesome.
It was all not
awesome.
Yeah,
not awesome, but awesome that you met the person. I'm not.
Yeah, well, I met their son. I mean, it wasn't like I met them directly, but I do recall that being a conversation that they had about, hey, you know, I gave him like $100 and I never saw anything from it. So,
oh wow, it's a film that some people, and I don't understand this, label it as a ripoff of Dawn of the Dead, which is stupid because it has nothing in common really with Dawn of the Dead minus the zombies. But I think it's a film that
I think a cash in on Dawn of the Dead.
Well, yeah, definitely.
But even though it came first, right?
Well, they were filming it when Dawn of the Dead was released. So the story that I've heard is that the film was actually completed, and it was completed under the title Island of the Living Dead. And then Zombie or Dawn of the Dead came out in 1978. It premiered in Italy before it premiered anywhere else, and it did really, really well. And the producers of this thought, oh, Zombie, that's a marketable title. We'll just call this one Zombie 2. And because it was almost a year later. So it made sense for it to be marketed as a sequel to something. And I think that's where it kind of got the ripoff sort of like mindset, because there were probably more than a handful of like spaghetti westerns made back in the day that were made pretty quickly to capitalize on the success of American westerns. So
well, it's what the Italians did. I mean,
it is what just
because they didn't this time on purpose.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the Italians ripped this off. I mean, you know, there's 3 or 4 other zombie films that followed it that, you know, borrowed, is a loose term, a lot from this movie. I mean, Zombie Holocaust or Dr. Butcher MD, there's like actual shots from Zombie in that film. So it's not uncommon for that to happen, but in this one's case, it was being made first. And everybody involved was actually pretty upset with the whole ordeal, it being considered a ripoff. That was one of the other things I remember from the interviews back in the day, was they weren't too happy about that.
Yeah.
So
It's also a film. I mean, we say it all the time. It couldn't be made today. This one literally could not. That's not stolen, but illegal footage that they took in New York without permits. I still don't understand how they got the bridge shots. Like even in 78, 79, I don't understand how you were able to put those zombies on the bridge and get that shot. The movie visually is spectacular. And you could never get that today. It would just be cheap CG to make it work. But just those iconic images, and this is a movie of iconic images. We're all gore hounds, and I've seen probably every extreme nasty horror movie ever made, but I'll tell you, I still look away when the eyeball goes into the splinter. That is, to me, just something that it hasn't aged. It still looks amazing. Just that slow, just pushing her through that piece of wood.
And the hang around right after too. Like that's, did you see it? Man, it's good shit.
Yeah, just the eye just exploding like that, basically. And I don't know. There's just so much. And you mentioned the boat zombie, Arthur Haggerty, I believe was his name, who was a dog trainer. I'm sure he never thought that he was going to live on forever. I mean, I think Trick or Treat did a bust of that character. There's masks. Really, probably you could make a case the highest volume of iconic zombies. Of course, the cover zombie being the most famous, but they much better looking zombies than Dawn of the Dead. And there's been a lot of Dawn of the Dead hate lately. I do love Dawn of the Dead, but I will give this movie that it has the more.
Don't ask about Dance Community. They're a bunch of weirdos.
Okay.
There has been a lot of Dawn hate lately. There's a whole. We'll talk about that.
I don't know where you're experiencing any of that. I literally go to a convention every year that celebrates Dawn of the Dead, and it just gets bigger and bigger every year.
I love Dawn, and I will direct you towards these people so you can talk.
Don't go there, Dan, or don't go there, Chris. Just go. Yeah.
I'm not interested in moving the rock, so don't worry about it.
Well, there you go. But
I don't think enough love goes to the arm scene in that movie. Everyone goes to the eye or the zombie versus shark, which is fucking awesome. I'm not shitting on that, but just
random. But yeah, wow.
But just the simplicity of the dude ripping his fucking forearm meat off. That gets me every fucking time. I'm not like grossed out or look away or anything, but it's like that's fucking nasty. That's
the opening where he the cop goes down the zombie's arm.
No, not the cop. The black dude or the black arm gets ripped
off. Yeah. Okay.
It's so simple. It's like a scoop of ice cream with the meat coming off. It looks so fucking nasty. I love it. That doesn't get enough love in my opinion.
There's a bit of saliva still on the wound. That's pretty nasty.
Eyeballs always get the attention.
Yeah,
a lot of people have eye issues.
It's a fucking classic for a reason, though, guys. Like, come on, like,
or the shark versus the zombie. Didn't a Microsoft commercial throw that on there in the last 10 years?
Yeah, it was some tech company. I do remember that though.
And then
it was during the Super Bowl commercials. It was like, what the hell?
Yeah, and then somebody was wearing a zombie versus sharks shirt from Fright Rags on like a popular sitcom. So.
If we're gonna mention shirts, Homeboy's wearing a Daily Planet shirt. Like he just throwing it out there.
That's
DC
true,
fan, Superman, Batman.
That actor, well, not really an actor, but underwater photographer Ramon Bravo. He worked with Jacques Cousteau, of all people, and he also wrote the book Tintorera, which became a Jaws ripoff.
Yes.
That's another thing. I mean, and you could argue because of the animal cruelty, drugging the shark and everything, but you'll never have that. And that scene is totally random. Like it doesn't really factor into much, but I can imagine just being in a grindhouse in New York back then and just watching this. It's like, this is not fake. That guy's really tangling with the shark, drugged or not. That's
well, he was also a shark trainer. So, I mean, there was probably some I think the shark was just subdued slightly, so he could wrestle
bite
with it
him.
and not worry about getting killed. I don't think they gave it like a roofie or anything like that. They probably just slightly tranquilized it so it'd be a little calmer.
Yo, Cosby, get him an espresso.
Tell me more about these shark roofies, Chris.
No, you don't need to know about that shark repellent.
But what's amazing about that scene too is how quickly they came up with a solution, because I think the actor who was supposed to play the zombie got sick or something like that, so they replaced him very fast with the shark trainer and shot the scene. So I mean, the Italians were great about that. They always thought on their feet, and there was a lot of improvisation of just get it done. However you need to get it done, just get it done. And that meant a lot of stuff was done on the fly. You also mentioned the zombie looks earlier. That Gina De Rossi did the zombie makeup, and they referred to them as walking flower pots because they were covered in clay and latex and dirt, and they looked nasty. Every single one of them just looked really rotten, and there's only a handful that still have eyeballs or that have their eyes open. And I think that's what scared me the most when I was a kid, is they all have their eyes closed. There's like nothing there. There's no humanity in these zombies anymore. They are literally just walking corpses. There's nothing left. Even if their eyes are open, it's just a blank stare. There's no blinking. And there's that one where her eyes kind of like she's cross-eyed or something, or one eye is going to one side, it's just. And again, 70s drive-in, movie, essentially, or grindhouse film. They find the one actress on this, or the one woman on this island who's fucking cross-eyed and looks spooky with her eyes open. So,
yeah, it's all you need is just that little touch. And when you consider how well made this movie is, it was shot in about a month, give or take, and it was out in theaters in 3 months. And you're looking at this is not some cheap cash in. I mean, there's artistry behind this movie. Again, we mentioned the Olga Carlatos eyeball scene, but the entire film is just filled with these iconic images. Mm-hmm. And I think it made a lot of it was kind of that movie that we forget now. Fulci's a god, but back then, other than Night of the Living Dead, it was hard to find the Italian stuff. We had Night of the Living Dead, of course, and this was the one that kind of opened up a whole world of cinema for everybody. And
Night of the Living Dead wasn't Italian.
No, I know. I said we had the American Night of the Living Dead, but this is the film that opened up a whole world of cinema for a lot of us. I mean, The Beyond, House by the Cemetery, and just discovering all of these great things. I mean, this was most people's first Fulci movie. And I don't have a whole lot of criticism of this, other than Tisa Farrow not having the greatest chemistry with Ian McCulloch. But I didn't have a big issue with that because, I mean, who needs a love story in this shit?
There's not enough love story in Zombie.
Not even, but I would give any actor in this a break just because they were all dubbed after the fact. I mean, you could have that chemistry on set, but you go into a studio and you start recording voiceover work, I don't care how much chemistry you got in person, it's gone once you're in post. And
you've sampled some of those newer Netflix stuff. You know how that works. It's totally like what's happening here. Yeah,
right.
But Todd, how did you first find it? Was this your first Fulci?
As far as I know, it's the first Fulci film I knew where it was. I don't think. I might have, I don't know. As far as I know, it was the first one where I knew the director, knew who it was, and the first film of his I knew. I'd seen the film before I knew. What did the box say back then?
We are going to eat you.
No, I meant the director was.
No, it said Lucio Fulci. You're thinking of 7 Doors of Death.
Okay.
The on-screen credit was Louis Fuller, but on the box, I think they put Lucio Fulci because they knew who they were marketing towards at that point, but the original distributor apparently didn't.
Right. But fell in love with it then. It was actually my buddy who kept bugging me like, you got to see it, and I hadn't seen it then. And I actually didn't see it on VHS first. I saw it on a CED disc. So for those who don't know what that is, Chris knows. Before the laser disc, it was the
dead formats.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, that's dead. Like, this isn't one people like, we got to collect them all either, because they're just shit format. You can't really play anymore either.
Well, if they want to collect them all, it was a short run. They wouldn't have a long road to go.
Yeah, they put a lot out though. My buddy had a huge like I was like, this is when you're just like, you picked the wrong whatever. But I watched Friday the 13th the same night on CED. It was
I'm all in on CED. It's the future, man.
But
that guy is still out in his hut watching his CEDs. He's good.
So I saw that lovely CED full frame version, and even as shitty and skippy as it was, I fell in love with it, and then later saw the VHS tape, and then the world opened up when that Anchor Bay, even if it was not enhanced for 16:9, it still opened up the world, and you got to see all that glorious, instead of that tight, it's so much. It's like I couldn't go back and watch that version now. It's just too.
I did it recently, and I'm like, we were barbaric back then. We had no like there are straight up shots of that movie where there's two characters on the screen. Not anymore, and they're having conversations, and it just you hear that the person that person A is talking to is on the left, and person B is on the right. Person B is just not in the movie anymore, but their voices.
If it was Universal, at least they'd cut from shot to shot. Not these tapes. You're like, no, you're listening to him.
No, Italian. One of the worst ones too, which I think we're going to discuss later. But one of the worst ones was City of the Walking Dead, because that one has a lot of shots where there's two people on either side of the frame, and instead of focusing on one or the other, they put the camera right in the middle of the full frame. So you're getting a slight profile of a couple of actors having a 3-minute conversation. I'm just like.
Like the painting where it's like the face.
It looked like Helen Keller shot that fucking thing. I'm just like
there was no panning or scanning on those.
No, not on these, especially not on the Italian horror. Hell no.
You get that on Back to the Future. You don't deal with that zombie.
Yeah, no, you got it transferred from a worn out print that had been to like 150 drive-ins and was coming off the fucking reels by the time they got it back.
We took them how we could get them back then. I remember watching this and thinking, there is no way that Lucio is going to top this. And then I was like, well, goddamn, there's the Beyond. He does, at least for me.
There we go. There's the Beyond.
Well, that's for another hate fest for you bugs, but I love the Beyond. But he's a guy that made multiple Stone Cold classics, and this one just has something for everybody. I mean, Richard Johnson, who we haven't talked about, one of the runners up to play James Bond and Dr. No, and I can kind of see it because he's fantastic as Dr. Menard. And yeah, this one has never lost anything. I still think it plays well for new horror fans, which we've discussed this before. A lot of classics don't, as much as we may want them to. This one,
I would like to see this with like a big first time audience, like the Texas Chainsaw, one of the anniversaries at the cemetery. Just a bunch of hands raised that have never seen it. And they were legitimately scared, yelling, and screaming. Like, I've never seen the movie like this, and I've seen this movie goddamn like 100 fucking times. This is great. So I would love to do that because I do think it holds up. I think it will hold up to new fans, to new audiences.
Yeah,
I can tell you, I have shown it to people in the past that have never seen it, and it one of the first things that I used to do back in the day when I kind of started doing online gaming was Xbox had a thing with Netflix where you could take your friends' avatars and walk into a little movie theater, and you could watch a movie with your friends if you were in a party together. And you could either watch it full screen or you could watch it looking like it was a movie theater with all your friends sitting in the theater with you. And we once a week, every one person would pick a movie, and this had popped up on Netflix, so I picked this. About 30 minutes into it, they were all kind of doing their heckling and their laughing, and they thought it was kind of silly and stupid and blah 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 blah. Once the eyeball scene happened, though, it was quiet.
Shut them up
for the rest of them. All of a sudden, it was like it was a real movie, and they realized, oh shit, that was hard, and they were itching to see what was going to come after that, and they all loved it when it was all said and done. I haven't seen it in a theater. I've seen it at a drive-in. I'd like to see it at a theater someday, but my co-host on my podcast, Mike Felsher, saw it at a theatrical screening. I guess he said the audience went berserk. They were going crazy. They were laughing and cheering and throwing stuff at the screen and just really getting into it. So he decided to go the second night, and he ultimately discovered that Friday nights were the nights to go to movies because Saturday night was a whole different crowd. He's like, you could hear a pin drop in the theater. Everybody was quiet and everybody was watching the movie. you know, and it was like it was just a night and day difference. So I guess it would depend on the type of crowd you see this with too.
Yeah, well, seeing it with veterans is I've done that. Got Brutal Cinema hosted. I forgot what the other movie was, and that was cool. But like seeing it with fresh fucking eyes, totally. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
For it.
I wish I had that experience. And this is one again, you know, we brought up the Romero trilogy. What breaks my heart with this is that we got follow-ups, but we didn't get a proper follow-up to this story the way it ended. And I would have loved to have seen that work out different and see exactly what Fulci could have done. But as it stands, stone cold classic. I really have nothing bad to say about it. If you're a gore hound, you're going to be pleased. And just the eye for detail. Again, the bridge. I'm still in awe. I've heard the stories, but I don't understand how that wasn't shut down immediately.
The cops in the 70s had much worse things to worry about than a film crew illegally shooting. There were probably less of them, and they were probably too far spread out to make that a priority at any point in time that day. And that's honestly probably something they were relying on. I wouldn't be shocked if one of the crew was causing a problem to distract the cops.
I was going to say, we got ties to the mob. So if you just leave us alone for a day, maybe a little less, we'll be gone.
And you have to remember, no cell phone. So all those people in their cars that were driving by honking when this was going on, they couldn't just call. So even if it took them 15 minutes to shoot that, and those people didn't call the cops till they got home,
or a payphone,
and you were traffic on that fucking bridge.
There's plenty of time.
That bridge, hell no.
Not to incriminate myself, but I've stolen a few cones in my damn cone shit off that wasn't supposed to be. So like, it is possible.
Right?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, the lack of technology makes it night and day. Totally.
Yeah.
It was a lot easier to guerrilla filmmaker then.
Yeah.
But just because we should rate it before we move on, unless there's anyone else who had anything to throw anything on this one. Well, I guess we'll just.
Should we all do it at one time? Because I think we're on the same page here.
I don't know, Chris. What do you give it?
I'd give it a solid 4.5. I don't know if I'd give it. I can't. I don't know if I'd give it a slap with a 5 because there's a couple of small missteps, but they're small. So 4.5.
Enjoyment factor is big for me. 5 out of 5 for me. It's just too. I like it too much.
Anything that I could pick at, just it doesn't change it from being a 5. So it is a 5, and I still can't believe Fulci wasn't the first choice. Enzo Castellari couldn't do it. Then Umberto Lenzi couldn't do it. Then it went to Fulci, and
I'd like to see Umberto Lenzi zombie.
I would be curious how that would have gone down too.
It would have been good. I think it would have been good. But
well, now I'm gonna have to lower. I'm gonna go with Chris on this one because I do have other ones that I think are better. It's hard though. I'm gonna do 4.5. But again, and just it should just be thrown out there. It doesn't mean just because a movie gets a 5 that it's going to win or it's going to lose, because there is a lot more that goes into it. So,
well, also too, like I 4.5 is a very respectable score for a 50-year-old movie. I mean, let's be real. So
yeah.
All right, so there we go. What do we have next? Then now I think it's Dan.
Our next one, hopping over to Germany, is Premutos, the Fallen Angel, from 1997, and writer-director...
AKA, what's it also called?
AKA Premutos, Lord of the Living Dead, which you might have found it on DVD under that title. Premutos, the Fallen Angel, though, beautiful new edition here from Unearthed Films, if you haven't picked it up yet. So in this film... Premutos is the first of the fallen angels, even before Lucifer. His goal is to rule the living and the dead. His son should pave the way for him to return. A young man begins to suffer from visionary flashbacks of the past lives he lived. On his father's birthday, a case containing an old book is found in their garden, which was hidden by a warlock in 1943. When the young man investigates the book, he mutates into a monster and awakens an army of zombies ready to bring back the fallen angel Premutos. All right.
Dan, quick question. Did you dress like the dad from this movie around Halloween? Because you guys look the exact fucking same when you had long hair. When you had long hair? Yeah, dude.
I think that's his long lost relative. I mean,
you see it, right?
Yeah, this is Dan's pick.
I have to go back and look at him now. I didn't see it.
Isn't your last name German?
I'm telling you.
That's what I'm saying. It's his long lost. It's his long lost uncle.
Post World War II, before Todd makes
just so you know what side he was on.
Yes.
Yeah,
we were already.
We know what side he was on after the war.
No, pre
No, you said post NASA. We got it.
Pre after World War One. All right. Well, on that note, I guess I do look like the dad. I haven't really thought of that. A little bit. I'm looking at him now. I'm not going to say that's a dead ringer, but
dead ringer.
We'll throw a pic
a few years ago.
Now.
Yeah, you
should. I'll go find an old Dan picture.
So this one, this is DIY filmmaking, and I don't mean that in a bad way, because they started shooting this in 1993. Olaf Ittenbach was he had to do everything, effects. He had to make his own dolly. This one is kind of like a German Dead Next Door in a lot of ways. It's very, very ambitious. This is in no way a cheap looking film. But before I drone on and on about this, was this a first time watch for anybody? Because, I know not everybody's seen this one.
I thought it was. I just didn't remember the name. No, I've seen it before.
Well, hot tag anyways, Pugs, because I'm curious to get your take on this, because I don't know. I might be the only one that likes this, possibly. I don't know. We'll see.
No, I can fully confidently say I do like this movie a lot, actually. But now, there's a lot of fat on this movie. And even with the, what's the longer version called? Which one's that one?
Fallen Angel.
Fallen Angel. Yeah. No.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't, I can't remember how long the different cuts were.
Well,
I like the longer version and the order that is played in. The first version I saw, not as good as the newer one, so that's the one to go with. It gets fucking bonkers by the end, and I was having a good time up until then, and then I had a great time. So it was a fucking umami bite to end the meal. It gets so bloody, so nuts, and then there's a bunch of fucking occult shit going on. Yeah, this plays to all the things I like. I don't remember the first time I saw this movie, because obviously I don't even remember I saw the movie, or I knew the name, but I know it now, and big fan. So yeah, I'm with you, Dan. I like this movie.
And Todd?
Yeah, I saw this movie a long ass time ago and wasn't a huge fan then. Saw it again. Looks much better now. Not much better though. So.
Oh, okay.
What do you expect? You got angels, demons, all that nonsense. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, but the last act, dude.
The last act is really cool, but that's just like a cool little visual thing at the end. The movie, otherwise, I didn't care.
I got you.
Man didn't show up though, right?
I mean, they got a tank in on this movie. Having
it's probably pretty easy to find back in Germany.
Well, maybe not in the 90s.
Everyone's grandpa had a tank back then.
Dan is still in denial.
We left enough of them over there, for God's sakes. There's probably huts made out of them.
I know the humor, because this one, I mean, when it comes to the gore, they don't mess around. I mean, that barbed wire scene with it growing out of his body. I mean, there's some fantastic gore here, and Olaf Ittenbach still works. He's moved on to some bigger films, doing some amazing effects. But I don't know. This is one that, for me, I remember when I saw it, I was, kind of first diving into the German gore scene, Andreas Schnaas, the violent shit films. I wasn't necessarily expecting anything well made when I watched this, and I was pleasantly surprised. I don't think the humor is going to hit for everybody. I mean, there's some, the booger in the mouth scene and all of that, I could see turning some people off.
Some
but
classics never die. Some people never mature enough to where it's not funny.
there you go. But I mean, the balls to be able to tackle all of this stuff. I mean, a period piece, that's hard to do that on a budget. And I can only imagine what the equivalent of a budget today he would have had for this. And I really do appreciate it. Again, Dead Next Door, kind of similar story. Not everybody's going to overlook some of the technical stuff, but I look at that and I'm like, that is a true talent. Olaf Ittenbach and J.R. Bookwalter being able to do what they did, that's not easy. And I don't know, this one still entertains me, but I figured I might be defending this one. But I don't know, Chris, I'm sure I talked to you about this one back in the day, but I don't recall. Where do you land on Premutos?
I think I know. I'm
not a fan. This one is it just doesn't. I there was a period in my life where gore was all I needed in a horror movie to make it worthwhile. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm pretty positive I saw this then and still went, no. And watching it now, I'm like, okay, ambitious, I appreciate for sure. But there are plenty of other better movies, in my opinion, that were just as ambitious, if not more so ambitious than this one was, that had less money to work with, that I like a lot more. So I'll give credit where credit is due. He got the movie done and he got a lot in there for what he probably had or didn't have. But overall, like, okay, great. So we got to watch this dude's film school. Awesome.
Oh, it's better than that, Chris. Come on.
Yeah, opinions may vary, mileage may vary. I just wasn't a fan of it. It's German splatter, and I'm just like I said, in this case, it's style over substance, or gore over substance. There's nothing else there. It's just a gore film. And
would you grant me that there's more to the story than the typical German splatter film, which I'll admit the Germans are not known for story?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I'm not as well versed in the German splatter subgenre as others may be, because I really just kind of got a whiff of it back in the day, because this came out around the same time through a company called Shakorama that also released Zombie Doom, which had another movie attached to it called Zombie 90 Extreme Pestilence.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the one that I remember watching the most when I look back at those, because I remember I watched the dub track and they had a guy impersonating Sylvester Stallone doing the main character's voice. And it wasn't like, he sounds like Sylvester Stallone. He was like, hey guys, let's go here now. Okay. And I'm like, why is he talking like that? Why is this dude doing that? And I wasn't sure if I just wasn't in on the joke or whatever, but I also remember that one. There was a lot of running up and down stairs outside. I don't know why. There was just a lot of zombies that seemed to like to go up these stone steps that went up a hill and like to come down them. And I barely remember that film. But that was kind of my exposure, was these three movies. And I went, no.
All right. I sensed that I was going to be the lone wolf on this one. I guess
but
I just
not.
appreciate
Pugs
it
likes
because
it
too. There has to be two of me to count. So that's how Dan works.
I guess he's a lone wolf.
Dan, if they would have,
I liked it a lot more.
If they would have leaned into your heritage, not hate, I would have liked this a lot more, Dan.
I guess Dan's a lone pack wolf of wolf pack.
Yes, he is. He just needs a little baby.
Yeah, I was hoping. I was just hoping, because I couldn't remember what you thought, Chris. But I think for you guys out there, check this one out. I think there's so much more to it than you guys, except kind of Pugs, were giving it. No, but you didn't love it. I love it. You don't love it.
I haven't rated it yet, dickhead.
Okay. All right. Speaking of which, let's rate it. Dan, why don't you whip yours out first?
Oh God.
All right. I love this film. maybe it takes me back to my pre-World War II homeland. I give it 4 stars. I know that I'm going to be the biggest rating on this.
I don't know if you should be putting that over the pre, because I mean that's when they still thought they were right. Pugs, what did you got? What did you?
I'm going to give this movie the longer cut, because that's the one I like the most, a 3.5 out of 5. I probably would have gave it a 4, but Dan irritated me. So.
I'm
Funny how that works.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it happens a lot. Dan can change the perception of a film if he goes first 90% of the time, at least for me. All right, I am going to be generous, and I'm going to give this one a 2.
Jesus,
that's generous.
Yeah,
wow.
it's that's below average. 2.5's average.
It also has religious stuff, so that's actually pretty high for Todd.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah.
I probably would fall in line with Todd on this one, just because I will give it credit for being ambitious and doing more than the average independent horror film. But again, I feel like there's other ones that have done just as much, if not more, that are better. So
I tend to rate off my enjoyment of it and how much fun I had. Now, yeah, I can't go higher than a 2.
I factor that in heavily. Yeah.
I should point out, when you say religious horror, I don't think this one's trying to get you to read the good book.
It's got fucking Lucifer in there. They're angels. Everyone's there.
All that propaganda stuff.
Yeah, the literal title is The Fallen Angel, Dan. I think this is a...
Yeah, it is, but like it's not like a church message. I don't think Nana is like sitting you down like, we're gonna watch Passion of the Christ and we're gonna watch
I'm sure they do back in your homeland.
I think you're swinging in an empty room here, my guy. You might want to quit while you're ahead.
All right. Well, let's see.
What do we have next, Dan? Dan, I don't think it's fighting time yet. So
maybe we will have a kumbaya moment on this one. I don't know. From 2015 and director Christopher Landon, we have The Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. 3 scouts and lifelong friends join forces with one badass cocktail waitress to become the world's most unlikely team of heroes. When their peaceful town is ravaged by a zombie invasion, they'll fight for the badge of a lifetime and put the scouting skills to test to save mankind from the undead. All right, so this is one that I think I saw in a theater with one other person back in the day in 2015.
Sense. I missed it completely.
I made it when it hit like the dollar theater, so that's when I got to see it. So.
No, I'm not. Look, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. I think this movie might have gotten screwed, but what do you guys think?
Chris, did you see this one theatrically?
I didn't. I saw it on Blu-ray. I think I picked. I don't know if I picked it up or if I got sent it or if someone bought it for me, but I do remember buying it because I don't remember it having a very long theatrical run. I think it was also limited, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't recall it, or at least it wasn't playing anywhere close enough to me where I knew that it was playing, and I'm like, okay, I'll go. Because I'm usually pretty good about, if there's a zombie movie in theaters, I try to make it a point to go see it, just because it's one of my favorite subgenres. So, and there's not that many that have made it past. After Land of the Dead, it kind of became it was Resident Evil or nothing. I think like World War Z and Zombieland were like 2 other ones that sort of broke that rule. But yeah,
it was all television series after that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the last decade, I was gonna say there's not a lot of zombies on the big screen. I think Walking Dead has kind of killed that for some reason. But this director he made the Happy Death Day films, the awful Freaky.
I would say this is before Dan hated him.
Yeah.
I don't hate him. I mean, he made a really bad movie with Freaky, but
I disagree.
Same, but I enjoyed Freaky quite a bit.
Maybe I'll revisit it one day. I'm willing.
Yeah, Dad, why did you like it?
I did not like Freaky.
He hates women. That's all.
Terribly written. We won't relitigate that one, but all right. Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. I'll go first on this one since I did get to see it in the theater.
Lucky.
Me and that one other person.
Hey, you know what? In my dollar theater, I had at least 5-6 people, so I was at a packed house compared to and I should say it was only like 2 weeks later. Like it wasn't that long because I couldn't find it in the regular theater because it was gone so quick, and I was like, oh, damn.
If memory serves, I think it opened sometime around Halloween season 2, and it was just one of those. I could be wrong on that, but I just remember.
Was there like
thinking,
a mass shooting or something that impacted this?
I can't remember if there was some other monster blockbuster out at the moment or what, but nobody was.
That was talking about another
Jesus.
movie. I was talking about
You know,
a
this
tragedy.
could have affected it. It came out October 30th. So obviously we all had shit to do.
Yeah, maybe that
Mm.
makes sense. Yeah,
That is yeah.
Yeah, I remember it being Halloween season, but I remember that me and the other person in the theater laughing our asses off. I still think it's a fail that they didn't go in the house and find that the scout leader had Dolly Parton kidnapped like in a cage, because that gag would have, I think, blown. It would have been an instant 5 if that happened. But
if you're curious, it was an estimated budget of 15 million, and it made about 3.7 million in the U.S. and a worldwide gross of 16 million. Yeah,
That's not good.
no,
which is a shame.
unfortunately.
I like this picture.
It's a goddamn shame. Yeah.
Obviously, this one is a zombie comedy with heavy emphasis on the comedy, but the cast is fantastic. I was sad to see Joey Morgan passed away in 2021. He plays Augie.
Oh, no, I didn't know
that. Yeah, very sad, because he hadn't really done much acting when he did this, and Ty Sheridan and Logan Miller, the other 2 boys, I mean, they had already been in a lot of stuff by 2015, but he came in, arguably stole the show. I thought he was fantastic. And this one,
he was also in that Critters, that webisode one, the good one, I should say.
Yeah, he talented guy. I have no idea what happened, but gone too soon. And lots of hilarious gore bits in this one. We get a zombie deer. We get the Britney Spears sing along with the zombie. It's silly. Like, if you haven't seen this, it's a silly movie, but for me, if I just want to laugh, this one hit just as hard. Watching it again, there's sometimes even just the subtle humor, like when the guy's trying to get the Takis out of the machine, and then after he's dead, it just like falls. Like, there's just so many funny bits to me in this one, and it wastes no time. It gets to the zombie action pretty early, and it doesn't let up. I mean, that trampoline sequence when they're trying to escape the zombies, and he's got the dick stretching in his
cliffhanger
hand.
moment.
The funniest cliffhanger moment ever. You have to be in the right frame of mind, but I do think the movie, I think it has heart too, but it's a blast for me. How about you guys?
Go for it, Mr. Chris.
I was going to say who's going first. And I liked this one a lot when I saw it. I still like it a lot. I definitely felt like it's been criminally underseen and under discussed, but unfortunately it came out in 2015 instead of like 1980 something or even 1990 something.
Yeah.
Movies like this, and I'm noticing this trend a lot. If anything, a lot of films that came out in the last 10, 15, 20 years are talked about for about 10 seconds, and then we all move on to something else because there's just no time anymore to focus on them. And Scout's Guide sort of fell into that. First of all, as we've talked about, it was a box office failure. No one saw it in theaters, and then everyone kind of quietly saw it on streaming. And I think recently it popped up on Netflix, or it popped up on Netflix at some point in the last couple of years, and more people started seeing it.
And we're 4 diehard horror fans who didn't go see it. That says a lot.
Right. But also too, like, if that popped onto Netflix recently, even in the last like 2 years, this movie is already almost 10 years old. So it took that long for it to end up on Netflix, where anyone else would have seen it or just stumbled across it. And other streaming sites too. Like, you had to know this existed to go looking for it realistically. But I thought it was fantastic and very funny, very heartfelt at points too. And I just had a great time watching it the whole time. I wasn't looking for Shakespeare, and there, I think in other movies there were some things that would have annoyed me, but this one had such a good sense of humor, it didn't bother me. Like the singing zombie thing, like In another movie, I think that would have
Oh
pissed
yeah,
me
that could
off.
totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in here, it made so much sense, and it was so much fun, and I didn't care. And I
Earned it
actually,
at that point too. Yeah.
it's and weirdly enough, there were times where it gave me like Return of the Living Dead 2 vibes, where like it was so kind of slapsticky and comedic that it kind of felt like a spiritual remake of that in a way. Like
when you
amped
said that like it felt like something out of the 80s, my brain immediately went, if this was released as Return of the Living Dead 3 after 2,
it would have made total sense. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Like, and I mean, zombie Cloris Leachman, and that scene when she starts like biting his ass. I think I got to give Cloris Leachman the funniest when she starts like biting his ass. It's like she's eating my ass or whatever he said.
Gumming my ass.
Zombie cats that are in the house at one point. That was
that's what I never got. I'm like this
Zomboobies, guys. Zomboobies.
Oh yeah.
Great shit.
Oh, I immediately looked them up and found out she was an adult. Yeah. The first thing I did, like Google.
That you can tell that this was made like there's several gags in here I don't think they get away with now. When the zombie cop's boobs come out and he just stops, he like just goes and squeezes them real quick. That's not in a movie now. They're cutting that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping maybe Netflix brings it to more audience and it keeps growing, because this one's just beginning to end a laugh riot. It might have been the funniest movie I saw in 2015 from what I can remember off the top of my head. It's everything there for the gore hounds. There is heart. I think the three actors have great chemistry, and hopefully more people will check this one out. If you're having a bad day, this is a great choice to throw on. And I don't think the raunch or the slapstick, I don't think it eclipses the heart, because sometimes that does happen with some movies. You get a little too gross, and
the main guy is easy to root for too. Like of the three, like he's just a good dude,
right? And he's trying to do right by his buddies, and he's also trying to grow up. And it's a story that anyone can relate to. It's a character anyone can relate to, and you have the one friend who still wants to play guns and robbers in the backyard at 13 years old, and you got the other buddy who's already hit puberty. It's that age. You're right in the middle. You're 14 years old. You're not sure where you're going yet or what's going on. And these three really hit that mark perfectly. And they were a lot of fun to watch together. And they, even the scene in the prison where he breaks them out, and he's you can tell like he's still kind of pissed at him, but he's like, well,
those are my boys though.
I'm not gonna let them, And his line, I followed the stench of betrayal. It was great, and they had a lot of those. And I'm like, when they hit the car, oh my god, your car butt fucked Bambi. It's got a lot of quotable lines and great set pieces and great actors in it too. I think everyone kind of brought their A game to this one. In directing wise, I think it was really well done too.
David Kochner, as well as the scout leader. That dude's hilarious. I like when
I don't know if it was part of the advertisement or not, but like I remember hearing it's Superbad meets Shaun of the Dead, and I'm like, there's no fucking way that's what it is. It's like, oh, that's exactly what the fuck it is.
Yeah.
Well, because everything's always it's Shaun of the Dead, it's this and that, but because this like hits the coming of age part of it well, it hits the zombie comedy part of it well. Everything it's firing on all cylinders.
Even like, Tucker and Dale gets compared to Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, but that's another. Well, every horror comedy does, but
it's great though.
But the few that hold up, this one and that one are two great examples that live up to that. But
it's amazing 20 years later, I'll still see like just that comparison to Shaun of the Dead. Like that still holds such weight, which is really cool.
Fucking rules.
Let me ask you this. Do you guys think the Late in the Game name changed had anything to do with the lack of success? It was Boy Scouts vs. Zombies for the longest time. And it was heavily promoted. Fangoria was covering it. It was like a big deal. And then late in the game, well, the Boy Scouts were like, no.
Well, I mean, I think anybody would have put 2 and 2 together. You know, like I mean,
Yeah.
then again, well, that was a different animal though, because when that new Blair Witch came out, they were advertising it as the Woods.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was really weird, and that was on purpose. That wasn't like a last minute name change. That was their marketing strategy. If let's advertise this as another movie, and then the week before it comes out, oh no, just kidding, it's actually Blair
It was
Witch.
at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is stupid. Everyone's gonna wonder where the Woods went. Like no one's
No, and they actually my memory's a little foggy. I remember the thing and when they did the poster switch when they came out of the panel, but they actually were showing commercials with the Woods title, weren't they?
They were showing commercials and there was YouTube links and all this YouTube ads and whatnot. And you know, so I mean that was a different animal compared to this. I mean, this was just a title change. And honestly, like I don't remember seeing any trailers that said Boy Scouts versus Zombies. I think the trailers I saw all said Scouts Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. So I imagine this title change probably came a little earlier than, like, say, The Woods and Blair Witch did.
Well, no, it wasn't that. Yeah, no, obviously it wasn't like starting to.
Yeah, so I don't know if I just think this wasn't the right time for this movie, to be honest. I mean, honestly, if they had released this and even in 2010 after Zombieland was big, I think they would have had a better turnout because more people would be like, oh, you know, we just saw Zombieland. So, because even the sequel to Zombieland didn't do as amazing as the first one did. And that was 10 years later. So it was like, you know, you wait too long and the audience starts to wane and go away, especially in this genre. And another zombie comedy 6 years after Zombieland, I don't know. Maybe that was the problem. It just can't be late.
Could be. But the one thing I did want to mention is, like, as of this recording, you can watch it on, I believe it's Paramount Plus, but it's also on Amazon Prime, and it's in 4K on both. So I was able to watch it in 4K because there's no physical 4K if I'm not like there isn't one. Not yet. Yeah. So
feels like maybe I don't know. Hopefully we get it, but
I'd like to own a 4K, but at least I was able to watch it in 4K and give it a look. But do we have anything else on this one, or should we just rate this one? Go to our final film.
We can go ahead and rate it.
All right, Dan, what do you give it?
This one, I mean, as far as like zombie comedies go, I mean, I don't want to say it's perfect, but it's close. I gotta give this one a 4.5. I think it's a blast.
I'm giving it a 5. One big handful.
I got your back, Pugs.
There we go, both covered. Mr. Chris?
Yeah, I'm probably with you guys on that one. I probably would give it I can't think of anything in it that I would change. There's maybe like one needle drop that I would have altered when the scout leader is attacking the kid in this house. I would have had the Dolly Parton song coming on every time the door opened. You know, like, and because it just kind of cuts, and I thought that was weird, but small, very small gripe. But other than that, I thought this was just a fun ride the entire time, and I really didn't have any major issues with it. So,
yeah, I think if Dolly Parton showed up somehow, that would have given it the 5 for me.
She should have been like one of the army trucks, like fighting the zombies. That would have been pretty.
Something like that. Yeah, she saves them right at the end. It's just like that Expendables Chuck Norris scene. Zombies just start exploding.
Yeah,
like
I would have been into that. And again, it would have fit the movie. It absolutely would have fit the tone. It would have worked.
Yeah. No. So
Maybe
guys,
check
that one out, guys, because and rest in peace, Joey. Didn't have a long run, but.
The Blu-ray and DVD is pretty cheap, I think, still. And if not, it's streaming a few places. You got a few options. Definitely, if you haven't seen it, definitely check this one out. I mean, judging from our ratings tonight,
I know I've seen it on Showtime, like in the guide.
Oh, so. Yeah, I could. Yeah, so
yeah.
You got some options. All right. Well,
it's out there.
All right. So now things get really heated. Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe you know, people's opinions have changed. I know Chris's could have, Pugs could have.
Yeah.
Chris hates it now.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, this is one that my opinion hasn't swayed much in about 30 years. I don't think it's gonna start today.
I don't know. I don't know what happened this viewing.
It took
One
my
day I love The
300th.
Exorcist.
It took my 300th watch, and now I gotta say this is a piece of shit.
Well,
I don't know.
you know, $2.99. If that's the case, you got a limit.
All right. So, well, for those of you who are unaware what we're about to talk about, from 1985 and director Dan O'Bannon, Return of the Living Dead. And if you're unfamiliar, when an accident at a medical supply warehouse reanimates an army of corpses, they arise from their graves with a ravenous hunger for human brains. All right. So there's only one person to go to first, I think, unless anybody objects. Pugs, much like
Oh,
the Grinch.
really? You're gonna
I was gonna
open
go
dark?
Chris.
Chris is the one you
it's
open with.
Chris
Who
and
the
Cloak
Oh,
and
okay,
Fug.
all right.
Gotta
I'll
make them wait.
You know, I don't want to say this out loud, but I'm actually with Dan on this one. I want to hear what Pugs is gonna say first, because I feel like I need to either build up a counter argument or I need to be like, oh wow, cool. So
well, why don't we? Well, I'll go first. I love it. It's still great. I have as much fun as I did the first time I saw it. So I'm gonna throw it to you, Pugs. Where do you land now?
My opinions have not changed very much, except my patience with this fucking movie. I really don't ever want to watch this again unless it's with you, Chris. I do not like this movie. I don't like the fucking characters. I understand, even Clue sucked to me this time. Like, this felt like homework. You heard me. Rest in peace.
Wow.
You made both me and Dad gasp. Pearls clutched.
I was forgiving up until now I have to dissect this, right? It's like, no, I don't like what's going on here. The ending falls super flat for me. I don't really give a shit about anybody. I hate the fucking punks. They're annoying as shit. The black dude comes in way too fucking late for me to give a shit. Yeah, I guess the only thing that's positive about this for me, like, the zombies look cool, the gore is cool, Tarman's all right. I think he's overrated. That's my big issue.
How? It's like one of the most.
I'm still saying I think this movie annoys me more because of its fan base. Like with Slipknot, I love Slipknot. I hate their fucking fans. Misfits, I love Slipknot. I love Misfits. I hate their fucking fans. You guys are pushy. This movie's not that good for me. I do not like it.
Oh.
So I think Pugs has hit the point. No matter what happens, he's always going to grind his
I'm
heels.
open. I will still watch this in a cemetery, but my main goal is I want to watch it with Chris, and I want to feel that energy, because that's what I didn't like Phantasm for like the longest time, and then I went to a movie theater and I saw it with the crowd. I was like, oh, this feels different, and now I think Phantasm is pretty cool. This one I still have yet to find this revelation. This fucking thing sucks.
How long did it take me to like The Exorcist? It still could happen.
Yeah. So, no, thank you.
Nothing's impossible.
I'm shocked. I mean, especially
Burn the Flames is a great song, by the way. Just throwing that out there too.
I would like you don't like the music. I mean,
some of it's cool, but Burn the Flames is the shit. I fucking love that song. But yeah, everything, it's a drag. It takes place on July 3rd, which is a big day for me. That annoys me as well. So,
I don't understand, Chris. Chris, you want to go first or me to counteract that nonsense?
I mean, you know, what do you want? I mean, Pugs was raised next to power lines, so I mean, something was bound to happen to him. No, I'm just. I
hope I get stage 4. We have to watch this again.
We recently did a show on part 2. We had a buddy of mine he's a huge fan of part 2 come on. He actually prefers part 2 to the first one in a lot of ways, and that was one of the main reasons I wanted him to come on, because even as much as I enjoy part 2, I can't say I like it more than the first one, and I wanted to hear where he was coming from on it. And you know, even then I wasn't like, okay, I understood his points and what he was saying about, he still likes the first one. He's not like Pugs where he hated it, but you know, it was still one of those cases where he just found the second one much more entertaining, and he had more fun with it than he did with the first one. The first one's a kind of a harder movie. You know, Return of the Living Dead it's got its goofy moments, but it's got a hard edge to it as well. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening in it, and the zombies are pretty brutal in this movie. I mean, The extras were very overzealous. They almost drowned Linnea Quigley. And then there was a paramedic extra who, when you watch the film, his legs literally go over his head when they tackle him. The dude just hits. Now, this is a real piece of concrete. This dude just hits with all of his body weight, and then his legs go fold over backwards over his head. That wasn't a dummy. That was a person. And these guys tackled this poor dude. I think he ended up with a concussion or something like that. I remember hearing that dude did get injured. And so people were getting hurt on this movie, and it was a very tense film to make. Dan O'Bannon, for a lot of folks, was not an easy director to work with. He was very adamant about keeping the tension going at all times. And he really didn't let people let up throughout the process. I think Beverly Randolph fell in that puddle about 22 times. And when the movie got cut together, they used like the very first take they did. Because she, but to him, she wasn't in the moment yet, because they had more to shoot that night, and she was still acting, and he was trying to pull the actors out of acting and just reacting to things, and the way they kind of normally would. So it didn't feel like they were acting. It felt very organic. I mean, even when she falls through the steps, in the movie, I because he tells this story and so does she, you can clearly see it's a stunt double running up the steps, but apparently there was a shot done where she falls through, because every time she'd get to that step, she knew it was going to collapse and she'd stop and go eep. So he had told her, the prop people pulled out the fake step. Now it's the real one. You can just run all the way up. We'll cut to the stunt double when we need you to fall through. And she ran up and went right through. And that was the kind of stuff he did to them. You know what I mean? Specifically
Baldwin
her
style.
Yeah, specifically her. She got picked on quite a bit. But we won't get into that. But yeah, I mean, it's the thing this movie did, which it kind of quietly did, because most people don't trace it back to it. They kind of just know. This is the film that introduced brain-eating zombies. It's a standard in the subgenre that zombies eat brains. The Simpsons borrowed it. Glee borrowed it. And people don't even realize it started with this film. This was the one that sort of snowballed that and made it the standard without really even trying to. Dan O'Bannon's big thing was he didn't want to step on George Romero's toes. So make the zombies as different as possible. We're going to have them run. We're going to have them talk. And we're going to have them actually pretty intelligent. I mean, they devise that plan to get the cops to come in, and then they swarm them as soon as they start getting out of the cars, and it's like, holy shit, not only are these things unkillable and vicious, but they're intelligent. So that's pretty scary. It's something like, and there's a lot of them, and it's not about spreading the infection. They just want to eat. That's all they want to do. There's no like, oh yeah, if you get bit, you turn into one in this one, right? It's just we fucking need the brains so we don't hurt anymore. It's like a drug addict going after their next high, and you're in their way. That's kind of terrifying. But no, I think this is a phenomenal film. I couldn't disagree with Pugs more, but I mean, Pugs is entitled to his opinion. I mean, the power lines did their thing, so.
I'm biased. X-Rated sampled quite a few lines from this movie on his Exorcist album, so
He's probably gonna get sued pretty soon.
Nah. It's been 30 years. I think they're good.
Is he dead? Oh, okay.
But the one thing you said, Pugs, that shocks me is the casting, because I mean the whole cast is great, but that trio of Clu Gulager, James Karen, and Don Calfa, I mean, we don't have character actors like that anymore. I mean, or not in huge supply. I mean, each one amazing. Don Calfa is somebody who he has that like old time Don Rickles quality where that guy is just funny. Like he's just hilarious. He has perfect timing in everything he does. It's something you can't teach. Just what a talented man. And to think that this movie would have been quite different, because Tobe Hooper, who was making very interesting movies at the time, had he have not had to go off and shoot Life Force and he directed this, I don't think the movie looks much different. I know Leslie Nielsen at one point was offered Clue's role. Again, talented guy. I think this movie looks much, much different.
Yeah, but we're talking Clue coming off or we're talking him coming off Creepshow, not Naked Gun, though.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is it wouldn't be the same. Talented guy, but Clue had something very specific, and it all came together to make, in my opinion, a masterpiece.
It wouldn't be the same, but just like Umberto Lenzi Zombie, I want to see Tobe Hooper's Return of the Living Dead.
It would have been very entertaining. I think we would even still be talking about it now, but I don't think it would have been a classic.
Well, you guys also have to remember when Tobe Hooper was attached to it, it was John Russo's version of Return of the Dead.
Yes.
It wasn't this movie. It was the script based off of his novel, which is basically, it is a direct sequel to Night of the Living Dead. And it suffers from the same thing every sequel suffers from. It repeats literally almost beat for beat the same story. The big difference in that story versus the original Night is that people know zombies are a thing, and there's precaution, like the dead are still returning to life, but now there's a way to work around it. Like funerals, at every funeral, people are staked through the head before they're buried, so they can't come back to life. And what starts the outbreak again is a busload of kids get into an accident and nobody finds their bodies in time. So it starts the whole thing all over again. And the group of people are trapped. And I think it's a church or it's another farmhouse. I don't think it's that different. I think it's another like farmhouse near a church or something. And it's a group of ragtag people who are stuck there, and the zombies are trying to get in. And I'm like, this is literally Night of the Living Dead with a new cast. And that was the film they were going to make.
And I can tell you,
that sounds awesome.
I can tell you had pugs and dead children. So,
well, there were some zombie kids in this movie, but they weren't on camera. They are there though. Apparently, there was a producer or there was someone who was high up who really wanted their kids in this movie, and Dan O'Bannon was like, "No, I'm not doing that." And a producer told him, "You have to do it." This guy wanted his kids and his wife in the movie. He said, "Okay, fine."
All right, get John Landis to guest direct it.
Too soon.
Copter him in.
Too soon. So he said to the makeup artist, he said, "Look, these three are going to come in. I want you to put them in the most uncomfortable makeup, and I want it to be itchy. I want them to be miserable." And he basically made them wait the whole day in that makeup, in very uncomfortable. And then when, he's like, "Oh, we're going to get your shots and we're going to get your shots." And then he goes, "Well, didn't have time today. You're going to have to come back tomorrow." He never saw them again. And the guy never asked again because, they obviously were like, "Oh my God, this was miserable. We don't want to do this." And there's a funny blooper reel on YouTube. You can see one of the kids, they even make like a funny line, like, "My dad paid to have me in this movie." It was something like that. And you can see that kid he just looks exhausted, and he just looks so like, I want to be anywhere else right now. So, he got his way. Dan O'Bannon got his way. He said no, he meant no, and they pushed, and that was that. But you can't get away with doing that nowadays. But so there were supposed to be some zombie kids in this one. So
And if that didn't work, they would have had Brian coach them.
Again, too soon.
That's the one thing I was trying to avoid, asshole.
My bad.
It wasn't me. It's cool.
But yeah, no, Dan O'Bannon is somebody that he's not mentioned with the Titans very often.
Well, he only did one or two. He wrote Alien and directed Return of the Living Dead. He doesn't really have a horror.
That makes you a Titan in my book, though. Like Alien.
Yeah, but he's not. He wasn't a staple in the genre. It's sort of like even look at Tom Holland. He did Fright Night and Child's Play. He jump started one of the biggest franchises in the genre. And you ask me if they know who Tom Holland is. Oh yeah, the guy who played Spider-Man. No, not that one. The other one. Good one. It doesn't.
Spider-Man directed Fright Night.
Yeah. But that's 2 movies, like that's not gonna get you Titan status. That's just gonna be like, yeah, you did a fucking great job, guy. And I wish we could have gotten more horror from him, because I think it would have been great. Yeah, I mean, I know there was another sequel proposed for this that Dan O'Bannon really liked, that Don Calfa wrote, called Revenge of the Living Dead, where the plot was the government they missed the site that they were supposed to be nuking, and they ended up nuking like 40 miles away, enough where like there was some damage from the blast where the zombies were, but it didn't actually kill them. It just sort of pissed them off. And the survivor, some of the characters survive and attempt to figure out what to do next. And there was a comic book made out of it, but according to Don Calfa, he was interviewed saying Dan O'Bannon read the treatment and really liked it. And then Tom Fox went off and did something else, did Return of the Living Dead Part 2, which is what we ended up with, obviously, which, some people love or hate. But
Pugs isn't a fan. He doesn't really like him till 4 and 5.
How dare you?
I'm a rave to the grave guy.
I might like it more than this one, but who knows? Whenever we get there.
Yeah, Pugs, though, like, hey, that's why we love you. Your opinion's not always easy to predict. I still don't get it, though.
He's told us this numerous times.
For the record, the reason why I seem mostly positive the rest of the time is because I really don't bring up shit I don't like. It's always, I'll answer your question and then I move on. But anytime I feel like I'm coming off negative, it's usually I'm just answering. So that's probably why I don't really talk about this, or like, shocker, I don't fucking like Led Zeppelin. I think they fucking suck. Shit like that. Iron Maiden's fucking lame. Metallica's garbage. So yeah, I have weird opinions on some things. I don't care if Rob Black likes that. Metallica, it sucks. They fucking stink.
We just need a new Pugs hates segment. Just if it's beloved,
all right, well,
sit on it.
Well, I mean, honestly, like, not to shit on Pugs, and Pugs isn't by any means trying to get you to push more on this. But your hate for this, it didn't come off as seething or over the top. You just didn't like it.
Yes.
Right? Like, it's not like he went to the rooftop with a sign and screamed at the top of his lungs. Like,
put the gun down.
Like Dan does when he doesn't like something.
Yeah, it just doesn't work for him. And I think that, I will say that I think environments can definitely shape how you feel about a film. And if you're already kind of in a mindset that you don't like something and you feel like you're being forced to watch it for one reason or another, it's going to play completely different. I mean,
my rebellious nature will kick in.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, and this is not, I don't want to get into this movie, but I remember when the female Ghostbusters came out, there were a lot of people who hated that film before they even saw a frame of it. And they hated it when they saw the trailer, and they hated it. They hated it when they went to go see it, and surprised when they left the theater, they fucking hated it. And it was like, well, yeah, of course, you went in to look for problems, and it wasn't a perfect film, and but it was funny. I had a lot of fun watching that movie, but does it hold a candle to the original? No. Was it trying to? Probably not. So what's your problem? And it was just, they just didn't want to like it to begin with. So with Return of the Living Dead, if you already have this mindset, I don't like this, and these fuckers are making me watch it for this show again to try to see if your opinion's just going to get less and less and less.
But that is also after the fact. The couple of times I've seen it, I still wasn't really a fan of it.
Right. And I think what would benefit you is if you watched it in a packed theater. I think if that doesn't sway you with a really energetic audience, I don't think anything will, because that really can push a person in one direction in another film. I mean, I did a screening of Fright Night in July, and I have a lot of friends who had seen it before, of course, but that was the first time they had seen it in a theater. Mm-hmm. And my co-host Raina said, I've seen this movie a million times, but this was the first time I saw it up on the big screen, and I loved it so much more than I ever have. Seeing it like that, because not only that, the audience really got into it. All the jokes landed. Like when Billy Bones melts down, people literally stood up and clapped. It was like being at a fucking a football game. They were cheering as if the people on the screen could hear them. I couldn't believe it. It's amazing. But when you watch a movie like this in that kind of a setting, I think that could flip the script for you. I think that could make you come to our side of the fence, where we have lots of good things here.
At least where I can understand it. Because I know you guys don't understand my point, but I don't understand your point either.
We've
Like,
got cookies.
I love cookies.
Can't have any if you don't like Return of the Living Dead. There are cookies.
Damn it. Change the flavor.
All right, so
flavored cookies.
I guess we can rate this one, and then we'll time to shoot one in the head. I guess.
Should I just get mine out of the way?
Yeah,
first?
just get it out of the way so we can.
It's actually higher than you think. 1 out of 5.
What's the one for?
It is a pretty looking movie,
Okay.
and I do love Clue. I just don't care about this movie. So like there are little factors, burn the flames and stuff. There are some positive things, but overall, I just rather not.
All right.
I'm 5.
Yeah, I'm 5 on this one. I couldn't give
I'm
it
also a
anything.
5.
Yeah.
All right. So now we've talked to 4 films. Now it's time to send one packing. So up for elimination, we have Lucio Fulci Zombie, Premuto's Fallen Angel, Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, and Return of the Living Dead. Dan, who do you want to eliminate?
Okay, so this is going to be a good example.
It's always a long one with Dan. It's never just an answer.
I'm explaining. Shut up, Dad. So even though I gave it a slightly higher rating, I have to vote for it to go. I have to vote for Scout's Guide to go because Premuto's representation, I can't say Scouts is better than Return, so I feel like Premuto's should stay in. So I'm voting for Scout to go.
Okay, long answer to say Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse.
Fuck you, Dad. I'll take as long as I goddamn.
What about you?
Return of the Living Dead. Bye.
I figure that. Chris, what about you?
Premutos, it's been real.
All right. Well, I am also voting for Premutos. So
That's what you get, Dan.
so that means Premuto's Fallen Angel has been eliminated. And
Yes,
so,
Fallen
well,
again? Loser for that.
Yeah. So we have left in contention Lucio Fulci Zombie, Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, and Return of the Living Dead. So on our next episode, we'll add a new one, and then we'll vote one out again. So there we go. So that was episode 1 of Tournament of the Living Dead. Dan, why don't you take over? Say bye.
Yeah. More screaming to come, more fighting, and
Who
Yeah.
fought? Where was the fighting? There was no fighting going on.
he flipped me off, and I don't even hate the girl.
He
who
has to
flipped
push.
me.
He has to push the fighting. It's what they click for.
Okay.
I didn't yell during the religious one. So I
Are
was being
those
good.
his people? Are these the ones we got to move the rock to get to? Or
Yes.
oh, okay.
All their neighbors
Well, on
know.
that note, we will rise again, and we will see you next week from the grave. What the fuck are you shaking your head, Todd?
We'll see you next time also.
All right. Money's on the dresser. Chris, say goodbye.
Bye.
I'll see you in Disneyland.